Termites, it's night 13. Isn't he fabulous? Isn't he wonderful? Just because he's fabulous, I decided to be a tiny bit fabulous and have a little champagne. I don't mind champagne out of a can. Just saying. We did the Sofia Coppola one. Look at this one. This is called 14 Hands Winery. There's a unicorn on here, which is what caught my eye. I'm a sucker for labels and cans. And it's the Rosé Bubbles limited release. I don't remember where this is made. Washington. Woodville, Washington, USA. But this was just at the regular liquor store by my house. So you can look for it. 14 Hands, unicorn. Just sometimes you just want some of the champagne. You don't want to open a whole bottle. Find somebody to split a can. What's wrong with that, right? It's getting good. Liberace, it's getting so popular on television. Termites. What else? Did you watch the college scandal thing on Netflix? It's really good. It's really, really explains it, because I didn't understand all that. Like the Felicity Huffman. I mean, I knew what they were doing, but I'm like, why are you saying somebody's on a crew team and they don't even know how to row a fucking boat? I don't get how you don't get busted once you arrive. Well, this explains they just never went to the whole. You got to watch it. It's very good if you're interested in that story. So he's going to keep his TV show simple. That's his argument. I agree completely. Because of the tight budget, the production number required ingenuity. If Liberace decided to play Tales from the Vienna Woods, crew members would be asked to stop in Coldwater Canyon as they drove from the valley and collect branches for the set. Oh, wow. That's definitely a cheap props department. Could you bring your own sticks? If you see any trees, could you just stop and pick them up? For a Kitten on the Keys number, a stagehand searched the alleys of Beverly Hills and found a cat to trip over the piano keys. Did no one own a cat? Wow, you went and got a feral alley cat? A real one. At one show, Duke Goldstone peered into the audience and saw a group of priests and nuns. He asked one of the nuns if she would be willing to appear on stage. "What would you want me to do?" she asked in surprise. "Just kneel down and pray," he instructed. When she agreed, the director told Liberace, "We're going to put Ave Maria into the show." Wow. Wow. The $10,000 budget allowed no frills. Duke Goldstone received $1,500, Liberace $1,000. He also shared the profits. George, the musicians, the crew, including a young man from Fresno, Sam Peckinpah, cameras, and theater rental had to come out of the remaining $7,500. To save money, Goldstone cut from the original 3 cameras to 1 basic camera with another for partial use. That's not very much. Goldstone used all of his directorial skills to enhance the production. Motion picture spots, instead of using flat lighting for most of TV shows, gave the program clear whites and rich blacks for a sophisticated look. For a Mother's Day show, Goldstone featured a framed portrait on the piano. When Liberace came to the climax of the Boogie Woogie, the portrait came to life and Mom shouted, "Hey!" Wow. For Danse Macabre, Goldstone employed a skeleton puppet. An added effect, he reversed the film to a negative. Engineers at some local stations thought the negative was a technical mistake and changed the polarity, thus wiping out the picture. By splitting the screen for 2 images, Goldstone could have Liberace play a duet with himself, or he could materialize Liberace's ghost-like by double exposing a black curtain, then Liberace against the curtain, fading him in slowly. Wow, that's quite a bunch of trickery. Goldstone was amazed by his star's inexhaustible source of material. For each new show, Liberace offered a wealth of numbers to choose from. One day the program was short, and he suggested playing All Alone. "Good idea," the director said. "We'll put a picture of a girl on the mantle, and you can talk about how you haven't seen her in such a long time, then go into the song." Liberace listened intently to direction, and he always did. "Okay, let's try," he suggested. And when he finished All Gone, Goldstone and members of the crew were in tears. Oh my God, this is crazy. The Liberace craze began its inexorable sweep across the nation. Fan clubs, composed largely of gray-haired women, sprang up from everywhere. Fan mail amounted to 5,000 pieces a week. Holy shit. And Mother's Day brought a flood of greetings to Mom. When Lee mentioned on air that his brother Rudy, serving in the army in Korea, wasn't getting much mail, the overseas post office received an avalanche of cards and letters addressed to Rudy Liberace, Korea. The most visible evidence of Liberace Mania came when he went on the road to play concerts and promote his television sponsors. In Miami, Liberace appeared at the opening of a branch of the First Federal Savings and Loan Company. Many women fainted. I've never understood that kind of, like, when you see the Beatles and people are fainting and crying, and, like, I don't know that there's anybody on earth I just don't think there is, that I would get that excited about at this age or any age. Even when I was a teenager, I can't, like, I thought it was cool, but, like, to be, like, in a frenzy about, I can't see it, but maybe there's something wrong with me. The most visible, many women fainted, several were bruised, and one child suffered minor injuries. A police sergeant was asked how many people were in the crowd. Damn few, he grumbled, but there were about 10,000 wild animals. The Denver National Bank offered to give customers personally autographed photos of Liberace. He signed his name for 3 hours until the supply of photographs was exhausted. The bank mailed 2,500 photos to fans who had waited in vain. Back home in Milwaukee, Liberace made an appearance for his Ford sponsors. The crush of admirers at an autograph party was so great that Seymour Heller told the police, "We've got to get him out of there. I've seen this happen before." What was going to happen? These old ladies going to be a stampede, a stage rush. Cleveland Society of Savings had profited so much from its Liberace sponsorship that it was able to buy a chain of banks. To celebrate the occasion, the society brought Liberace to Cleveland for an hour's television show attended by a huge crowd, including the mayor and the governor of Ohio. During the summer hiatus from filming the television show, Liberace appeared in concert halls, arenas, and stadiums. A historically important occasion was his first Hollywood Bowl appearance. What? In 1952, his advertisers were concerned about drawing a respectable crowd at the 18,000-seat bowl. Not Liberace. His only worry was whether patrons in the highest reaches of the bowl would be able to distinguish him against the orchestra's sea of black tuxedos. Do you think it would be too much if I wore white tails? I mean, all white, he asked Don. Sounds like a great idea, Don advised. Liberace's favorite tailor, boy, this guy was probably overworked, Cy Devoir, created a stylish suit of white tails and then a duplicate because Liberace would sweat through the first one. It was the first time that Liberace appeared in concert wearing anything but traditional black, and it would set a precedent for things to come. Oh, I feel like his inner gay is going to get let loose, and it's going to be wonderful. Florence Kelly came from Milwaukee to help her one-time pupil, the old teacher lady, prepare for the important concert. Angelina arrived in California. Both men were astounded at Lee's calmness of the day of the big event. He spent his time building a window planter and playing with his poodle, Suzette. In mid-afternoon, the radio carried news of reports of a traffic jam already forming at the Hollywood Bowl. "Oh, dear," said Mrs. Kelly. "I think you'd better go early, so I'll be on time. You should too, Walter." "Don't worry, I'll get there," he said airily. Despite his sister's urgings, Lee didn't leave the house until 8 o'clock. Oh, my God. Somehow, I would never do. What time's the show? Somehow he managed to penetrate the near gridlock surrounding the bowl. He donned his white tails and strode confidently onto the stage after George had led the L.A. Philharmonic Orchestra in a Bizet overture. The crowd was the largest in Hollywood Bowl history. Liberace was cheered by the audience, though not by his critics, who berated his kitschy, I can't say it right, kitschy repertoire, as well as his white tails. Well, who cares what they say? Liberace returned to the Hollywood Bowl to face another sellout crowd the following summer, and the year brought two other important events. Once again, Liberace was invited to entertain at the White House photographer's dinner, this time for who? Dwight D. Eisenhower. George Murphy was the master of ceremonies, and the other entertainers were, ready for this? I only know one. Izo Pinza? No. Jane Froman? No. And Danny Kaye. Yes, I am familiar with Danny Kaye. Liberace was also accompanied by the NBC Symphony Orchestra, and he played solos, including Boogie Woogie. Again, he invited presidential participation. He delivered his hard driving, crowd-pleasing boogie-woogie, stopping for an occasional hey in the chorus. Liberace paused and inquired, I wonder, Mr. President, if you would care to commit yourself as a real fan of boogie-woogie. When the cue was given, Eisenhower shouted a military-like hey to whoops and laughter of the throng. Then, on September 23rd, 1953, Carnegie Hall. Wow, how exciting. Again, the Liberace's advisors cautioned against it. The long-haired critics would have their stilettos sharpened, ready to puncture the TV piano player who had the audacity to occupy the hallowed stage of the world's great artist. You know what? Fuck them. He can play the piano like nobody's business just because he has fun doing it. People are so snotty. And he really is classically, I mean, he knows everything. Forget the critics, Liberace replied. Good for him. They're never going to like me anyway. Exactly. It had been my dream to play Carnegie Hall since I was a hungry kid in New York back in 1941. I'm going to do it. Good for him. With a symphony orchestra behind him and the candelabra on the Baldwin Grand, Liberace raced through his repertoire of classic pop and boogie-woogie before a wildly enthusiastic capacity audience. The cheers were deafening when he introduced Mom, queenly in her mink and orchid sitting in the first-tier box. As Liberace predicted, the New York Times critics wrote savage reviews, said the Times man. Here's the review. Like Solomon, Liberace scorns a given name, but the resemblance between the two artists stops there. Liberace displayed good fingers and skill at taking brilliant run-ups up and down the keyboard. He has two styles of playing fast, loud, and energetic and slow, with sentimentality, exaggerated retards, and accelerendos. I don't even know what that means. It is a type of piano playing frequently heard in cocktail lounges and is very pleasant to go with cocktails. What a dick. The Times reviewed the following pattern established from the beginning of the Liberace phenomenon. Never in show business had any successful performer evoked such an outpouring of scathing and occasionally vicious reviews. John Crosby of the New York Herald Tribune, the most read and influential television reviewers, wrote, if women vote for Liberace as a piano player, and I'm sure they do, it raises questions about their competence to vote for anything. I'm not suggesting that we repeal the 19th Amendment. Exactly. Just that maybe we think about it a little. Fuck you. I will defend Liberace till the day I'm dead. Sometimes a man wonders whether the women of this fair land are people or whether some other designation ought to be given to them, say plips, to distinguish them from the rest. What? The column was designed to arouse the female populace, but even Crosby was astonished by the violence of the reaction. Good. The roof fell in, he wrote in a subsequent column. Brother, there hasn't been anger like this since Cicero delivered the Philippics in the 5th century BC. The nicer letters started out drop dead. The not so nice letters, well, never mind. The Indianapolis News printed Plipp's column on page 1. Telephone protests poured into the newspaper that day, then hundreds of letters. John Crosby is the most terrible writer I've ever read. He is rotten. He is disgusting. A man listed as John Crosby in the Indianapolis telephone book received 10 threatening phone calls before having his number changed. Oh, that poor guy. He's not even involved. The news editorialized, a word of advice to budding politicians. Don't run on lower taxes or higher Social Security. Run on Liberace. Say you think he's terrific. Good advice. Even if you don't, just say it. The Indianapolis experience was repeated in Boston, Philadelphia, South Bend, Memphis, and other cities where Crosby's column was syndicated. He remained unrepentant. I still think Liberace plays the piano as if he were wearing boxing gloves. I could phone local 802 of the Musicians Union and dig up 100 piano players I would rather listen to. Then you know what? Go see them. Why don't you just do that, John? Why don't you call your local 802 Musicians Union? The Crosby incident encouraged other columnists and critics to take potshots at Liberace, certain that the reaction would be swift and vocal. Even the New York Times joined in. The Times assigned Howard Taubman, who normally reviewed the likes of Pablo Casals, I don't know, to write a critique of Liberace's TV show and record albums. His Sunday article was titled "A Square Look at a Hot Shot." He made sardonic comments about the TV show, citing the candelabra standing in solitude on the piano, the ring. Even in black and white televisions, you have the sensation that it holds rare gems. A smarmy monologue. Liberace is telling a story about a sweet old lady in New England who writes him all the time. So, the record albums receive no better treatment. Liberace creates, if that is a word, each composition in his own image. When it is too difficult, he simplifies it. When it is too simple, he complicates it. The author's conclusion: what kind of pianist is Liberace? Don't ask a square with Horowitz and Rubinstein on the brain. He'll say Liberace is not much more than a parlor pianist who ought to be kept in someone else's parlor. Oh my God. Such a critic will point out a lot of flaws: slackness of rhythm, distorted phrasing, and an excess prettification and sentimentality, a failure to stick what the composer has written. In March 1954, the LA Mirror printed 4 articles dealing with Liberace. Like he's something to deal with. He's an you don't have to deal with him. He's an entertainer. You just go or you don't. These people, I've never had any kind of really admiration for critics. I just think it's just one person. You shouldn't even say what you should just say what happened. This whole is such a snobby bullshit. This is what they wrote. One of the strangest roles in the strange world of show business is being enacted today by a dimpled, curly-haired piano player who loves his mother, and he tells the world about it. His popularity raises speculation over the sanity of the nation's women, particularly those in their middle and late years who idolize him. Why? Because everybody thinks, wouldn't it be wonderful if he was my son? That's what a lot of them thought. Because look, he buys his mom minks and cars and shit. Who wouldn't want that kid? Hey, here's a new Cadillac. Thanks, Lee. What's not to understand? Here's a coat that you always wanted. Oh, you're the best. So then Liberace's ever-protective lawyer, John Jacobs, was prompted to dispatch the Mirror a 10-page letter refuting certain elements of the series. Among his complaints, there is much derision made about Lee's devotion to his mother. He is accused of momism. Never heard it. A term invented by a notorious woman hater, Philippe Weil. This term is used in an expletive like communism or Nazism. It is given a sinister connotation. Liberace does love his mother. He vividly recalls when she nursed him through double pneumonia and the time she saved his finger from amputation by the application of an old-time remedy after doctors recommended surgery. There's an allusion in the series to the fact that youth finds Liberace silly and affected. How can I believe that when I see hundreds of letters every day addressed to Liberace from teenagers who revere him? You state his mother said as a child he preferred sewing. Did you ask Liberace? You state that Liberace's mother said as a child he preferred sewing. Did you ask Liberace's mother if that was so? Well, I did, and the answer was a no. I played 7 years of football and boxed in college, yet I would hesitate to challenge Liberace to any feat of strength. He is in perfect trim, almost 6 feet tall and weighs 6 feet tall and weighs 180 pounds. His tastes, however, are gentle. He does not hunt or fish because he will go to any extent to protect his hands which make his music. Liberace was hurt by all the bad notices and derogatory articles, but he had learned in the barrooms in Milwaukee, where he was subjected to the abuse of roaring drunks, that the best defense for attacks was a wisecrack. He found the classic remark when he told the audience in San Francisco one night, "I don't mind the bad reviews, but George cries all the way to the bank." In time, the crack made its way to Bartlett's quotations. Is that famous? Is that an old person thing? What the hell is Bartlett's quotation? All right, that's a good place to stop. Termite. Oh, what else? Easter's coming early. Isn't it weird? It's on April 4th. That's weird. I'm going to have to get some tulips from Kroger. I'm going to go up there. I've got these back here. They're going to bloom. Those aren't tulips, though. Those are like, I can't remember what they're called. They're very cool, though. It comes out like a stem type deal. Also, somebody told me you can replant those tulip bulbs from those Kroger things, so I saved all the ones from the last one, and as soon as it's a little warmer out, I'm going to go dig a hole and see what happens. All right, termites. Just remember, champagne out of a can is still champagne. Sometimes you don't want to waste a whole bottle, you know? This is pretty good. I like the Sophia Coppola better one. I like that one better. And it comes with a straw. Ah. All right, close your eyes. You're good termites. You're worthy termites. You ready? Night, night, termites.